actual class. We're dealing with first graders here, so all you have to put your minds and brains as your first graders and your misconceptions of what you've told me so far is that liquids are like mostly like water, like flowing things, and solids are always hard. So just keep that in mind as you're giving like responses.
One additional thing is you have learned before how to use audio notes, and a book that we're going to be referring to, you also have, we are teaming up with the literacy teachers to set up a science and literacy lesson, so you also have read the book. I'll refer to it, but so you know.
Okay, class, so today we're going to continue our lesson about solids and liquids. So can any of you tell me what a solid is? Yes, that's hard. That's hard, okay. Okay, anybody else? Or tell me what a liquid is?
When you think in your head about a liquid, what is it to you? What's a liquid? What does that mean?
Flowing. Okay, now I want you to turn and talk with a partner, and I want you to point to things in our class that's like a solid or combined that's a liquid. That's a liquid. This is solid. Okay, class, let's come together now. Okay, so can any of you tell me, like, point to some examples in the class of a solid?
The table.
Nico's a table. Okay, what about something liquid? That's a liquid.
Water.
Water? Okay. Very good. Okay, now I want you to, okay, so we're going to go ahead now, and you're going to see a video.
If we were doing this with our class, we'd have you guys go through like recording your notes in the audio, but just for the sake of it, okay, we'll do that towards the end.
So now, class, do you remember the story that we've been reading? The story that we've been reading about Bartholomew, how do you say it in English? Bartholomew and the Oblate. Just remember the song that we've been singing? Basically, this is the story of Bartholomew, who was living in this castle, and in this castle the king hated the seasons. And he decided that he was tired that every year there would be spring and summer and fall and winter. So he didn't like the water and all the snow and the fog and all that. So he decided to ask his magicians to come up and destroy the seasons and create something that was different and was completely more consistent than the water, because he didn't like the feeling of the water. So when the magicians came and they completely created this new oobleck thing, and the oobleck started falling, and then this oobleck wasn't water, but it wasn't solid either. Remember that we were looking into that? They is very similar actually to the consistency somewhat of the silipuri, that even though it looks like solid, it sort of behaves sometimes like water. So he realized that that wasn't a good idea, and Bartholomew at the end told him that he needed to say I'm sorry, and if he said I'm sorry, the gods were going to allow the oobleck to go back to being, it will allow the seasons to come back. Now, you have some of the oobleck in your hands, and we wanted you guys to think about it. Do you think that after knowing the story and sort of having had the opportunity before, and now it's in front of you, to touch some of the substance, do you think that solids are always hard and that liquids are always flowy, or have your conceptions of solids and liquids changed after we've been going through the story and playing with the materials?
Is there a different word for something between solid and liquid?
No.
It has to be solid or
It has to be a solid or a liquid.
Good question.
That was a great question. share?
So boys and girls, touch it, play with it a little bit, smell it. The only thing you can't do is taste it. No tasting.
Why is there a marble in it?
We want you to know what happens to the marble. What do you think happens if you put a marble into something solid? It will go down or it will stay at the surface?
It will stay on the surface.
Okay, is this marble staying at the surface? Okay, is it solid though? Do you think this is a solid material or do you think
Flowy. It's kind of flowy.
it's kind of flowing? Okay,
It's not
So-
squishy.
so some materials are not either solid or liquid. How do you call it?
Ooh, black.
Good answer. Okay, so.
So let's try another experiment, boys and girls. And for this, I do want you to use your iPads because we're gonna write down our hypotheses and our observations and take notes. And I know you all know how to do this because we've been doing lab reports, but this is special because we're gonna use the audio note. So if you could all go to audio note on your iPads. I think everyone has. Each partner, each pair has.
Audio
one,
note light
right?
or audio note?
It's like silly putty. It's made of detergent,
Glue and water.
glue, and water. Okay, so for this experiment, boys and girls, we're gonna look at the two liquids in these glasses. Okay, so I want you to use all of your senses except for taste. No tasting. So I want you to smell them, you can touch them, look at them, think about what they might be. And I want you to make a hypothesis. What do you think will happen if we put them together? What do you think will happen if we put the two liquids together? Okay, so write those down. Write your hypotheses down in audio. If we put the two together, what do you think will happen? Make sure you smell them, touch them, see what they're like. Yeah, isn't it very cool? Yeah. Distracting. Okay, so now that you've made your observations, you made a hypothesis, I want you to pour the white substance into the brown substance. White into brown. Don't do it the other way around.
With the white into the brown.
White into the brown.
Ready? You ready, Lori? You ready for this? You ready?
Pour it all in. Go crazy.
Now chug.
Now we're gonna let it sit for 5 minutes. So while we're letting it sit, boys and girls, I want you, oh yeah, okay. So I want you to make observations. So I want you to write in your audio note what is happening, right? You can write or record, whatever is easier for you. Write or record what's happening to the two materials now that they're combined. What do they look like? What do they smell like? Don't touch them though because they're going through a bit of a change right now. We'll do that at the end of the 5 minutes. So make observations. And if you have questions, ask questions.
Like hold out. It looks like, yeah, and it doesn't look like it. That looks
And then you're going to try to get it.
since we have 5 minutes to wait, put that cup aside so you don't spill it, because that would be really gross. And we're gonna play with our other materials to see if they're solids or liquids, okay? So you can open up your jug, your red material. The red material, mystery material. Open that on up. And then you can also explain a little bit more.
Basically, we want you guys to start to form an opinion about the materials that are in front of you. We want you to look at them and decide, are they liquids or are they solids or what is it that they are? Because something that I remember some of you said was that the liquids are flowing and that they somewhat move. So our Cheerios, because they're sort of flowing in the cup, right? And they sort of, you can pour them so they behave somehow like a liquid would you consider them liquids just because they sort of do some of the things that liquids do? And when you look at some of the others, that the solids are hard, so does that mean that our Jello here is not a solid because it's a liquid, but it's kind of bouncy, and you can also touch it. So feel free to, but if you squeeze it out, it's sort of flowy. So is this a liquid? So think about it, talk to your partner, experiment with it, and then start thinking, so we can go back to the drawing board and decide what makes a liquid, and are we still considering the solids to be hard, or are we considering solids to be more, do you say fluid? Fluid in their conception.
So talk with your partners, touch them, smell them. Are they solids, liquids? Why?
No?
Nice job. No, that's good. So yeah, you can put different materials into one another and see what happens. This Judy jar is doing a really good job doing that.
Hello? Do you know what
Yeah, Cheerio is harder than the Jello. Cheerio
already.
shaking on the Jello. So that means Jello is totally, Jello's a Jello,
Okay, so what happened over here, you guys? What did you do?
So we decided that Jello was a liquid because the Cheerios were the Jello. The Cheerios stay the same shape and the Jello molded around. That was our hypothesis.
Why do you think it happened?
That's what she
Let's put the Cheerios in the Jello.
We should put it in the jello.
Don't forget to record what you're doing. Make notes about the experiments that you're doing and any observations that you have. So write down. Make it yourself. It's like really easy to make. Yeah.
Ours is not this one. I never seen it. I wanted to know how it looked.
Is your marble there too?
Yeah?
Did you guys get a marble?
Like that?
This, I don't know.
I'll write your hypothesis.
So was that
It smells like soda.
Really?
Not okay, we'll talk.
No?
No.
It smells like Dominican soda.
Would it
so
bad?
maybe
Really?
it'll be fine.
Yeah.
They really come out.
No?
No.
Oh,
See
what happens to the I was going to say very sweet.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's something in there?
But you said yeah.
And I was going to be thirsty and then when I started
It's true. Really.
But it didn't sink, so you got me that.
Okay, so boys and girls, we're gonna pretend that like enough time has gone by that this has done what it's supposed to do. So we're gonna keep going. So ideally, after 5 to 10 minutes, this gets nice and like squishy and hard and sponge-like. So what I'm gonna ask you to do, and you don't actually have to do it because it's not hard yet, is you would touch it, see how it feels, smell it, see what it smells like. Look at it, make observations. Is it a solid? Is it a liquid? What happened? Why did it happen? Write everything down, right? So that's what would go on at this point. And you can try now. This one actually looks like it's almost, yeah, it's not quite, but it's definitely like, I mean, can you see how much more like congealed it is? Yeah, so you can see already that it's like going through the process of turning into a solid. So, yeah, it's pretty gross. Okay, yeah, so there's the 4 ways of testing it, boys and girls. Can everyone read that up there? So the 4 ways of testing to see if it's a solid. The push test, so you can push it. The pickup test, so moving it around. Does it all come, like if we pour it, right? Does it come flowing out or moving? And then, so that's the pickup test, and then the pour test, and then the shape test. Does it keep the same shape?
So, if you guys, with the oobleck here, what we want you to do is work in your material and see if it passes this test. And if this test passes, then I want you to turn to your partner and make a decision. Do you think that this substance is a solid, or do you think it is a liquid? Please record it and then let's share with the class. So you have 30 seconds to share and make a decision as to if this is a solid or a liquid.
Don't pour it out. Don't pour it out.
No.
Cheerios.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah, I think this one's solid.
So
You can push it, you can pick it up, you can pour
Yeah.
it out. It's like,
So now that we have been able to touch our materials and decide if these are solids or liquids, does anybody wants to share?
We have a clarifying question.
Yes.
Okay, so the 4 tests to decide if something is a liquid or a solid. The push, the pickup, the pour, and the shape. Which one decides which? Like the pour test decides it's.
All of them you do to determine if a liquid is a liquid or a solid.
Okay,
So-
so how do I know? Like.
So when you push it, it is hard at the touch, and then it is a solid.
Okay.
When you pick it up, if you're able to pick it up in one piece,
Okay.
it means that it's a
It's
solid.
solid.
When you're pouring, if it pours, like a liquid, then it's a liquid, but if it pours very slowly, like this would, then if it pours slowly or if it comes in one piece, it's normally a solid. And the shape, does it maintain its shape when you put it in a different container? That will tell you if it is a solid or a liquid. So after you guys have gone through the testing, we want you guys to share and let us know what do you think this experiment was. Do you think this was a solid, or do you think it was a liquid? And in science, anybody wants to share?
It might be a liquid that is transforming into a solid or a semi-solid.
Okay. Anybody else? Nico?
I agree. liquids and solids, but a lot of things are empty.
Great,
Yeah, some things have some liquid properties and some have some solid properties.
yes.
Can you say that, so when I touch that, it's not hard,
Yes.
but I consider that a solid.
Because it,
But you said if you touch it and it's hard, then it's a solid, but if not, but I think that's a solid.
because it doesn't.
That's one of the things that we wanted you guys to experience today, that even though solids tend, or we believe, that's, okay, can we continue or
Yes, you can take.
wrap up? Okay, so basically what we wanted you guys to experience was that even though solids and liquids have been classified as having specific properties, this is not always the case. There are going to be some substances, some instances where solids tend to be sort of liquidy, and some instances where liquids tend to be sort of solid looking like, and these are materials that have properties in between that are called non-Newtonian liquids, but we learn about that, you learn many years later. Now, on the meantime, we have put in front of you some assessment, and we want you guys to take a minute to pretty much decide if these activities in front of you, would you consider them solids or liquids? Thank you very much. Yes? And you can eat everything now that is in front of you.